Hi, welcome to the Change Intelligence webinar series. My name is Therese Perez, and today we're going to be talking about developing growth and grit for the change journey. You more than likely know who I am, but let me just do a bit of an introduction. I'm based in Sydney, Australia. I'm the founder of myvirtualchangemanager.com. We're very much focused on aligning people's purpose, their passion, and in the change and program environment, really kicking. Okay. Hi, it's Therese here. Welcome to the Change Intelligence webinar series. My name's Therese Perez. I'm the founder of myvirtualchangemanager.com. Today, we're going to be going through developing growth and grit for the change journey. So I have 20 years experience in the program and change environment. A long time ago, it wasn't called change, but certainly over time, I have been working using the discipline as well as program management to get the best outcomes for organizations. I've worked across a wide range of industries, implemented change at various levels, and really keen to share this information, which will make a difference in this ever-changing world that we are living in. I'll just quickly cover off because you may need to run at the end of this webinar, but the resources available to you after this session, we obviously have myvirtualchangemanager.com. We're always putting new tools, publishing new episodes, new blog posts on that website. So if nothing else, jump on there, see what you can utilize. We've got Next Level Change Success, the podcast that we publish weekly across Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. We have an Instagram page, My Virtual Change Manager, and we have obviously I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and on YouTube. So a lot of tools and resources that you can leverage, hopefully, as you're trying to navigate change. We also have a live course happening soon, so I will be sending out information on that. If you want to get more information on that, subscribe to our newsletter or the sign up for this series, which hopefully you have, and you will get information about when we're going to open our doors for that. So that's happening soon, and that's all about the 5-question change plan, how you can create with your stakeholders a change plan in less than 30 minutes. So what are we going to cover today? I'm really excited about the topic today because it is a passion of mine around growth and grit. We're going to talk about change intelligence. It's important to understand the context of change intelligence, why it's crucial, not just why, but why now. Why growth and grit is important when it comes to change. And if you have experienced a change, if you've led a change, or if you manage change in a program or project context, you understand that there is a need to have some level of grit and determination to have a change take place. It takes courage without doubt. And that every time you're showing up to your workplace, you have the opportunity to grow professionally and personally. And I don't want to underestimate this. That's why it is a focus point on change intelligence. It's how we can align our purpose more to what we do, considering the amount of time we spend in the workplace. And then at the end, we're going to talk about the one thing, although it's actually two things because we're talking about growth and grit, two things that you can do to get started as a reflection point or even just to start to observe how you behave in the workplace. The journey to change intelligence. So let's go through this. It's obviously got a lot of information on this page, but we're going to step through it in a story way. So when I was at university, I learned about the Henry Ford's and the Frederick Taylor method around management theory, which was all in the industrial age. At that time, it was very much around the machinations of how organizations worked, about delivering a product off that production line and doing that the most efficiently and in the most efficient and cost-effective way. The leadership theories were more autocratic, so it was I say, you do, and that was really because it was the machinations, the steam engines, assembly lines, the factory type uh, industry that was happening at the time. That's what the management theory really lent itself to. It was uh, quite directive from the leadership and the management teams. Now, change management and project management at the time, they wouldn't have even used those terminologies for this, But certainly they were looking at early principles around work breakdown because of this mechanation aspect and getting things through this assembly line. And there are early concepts of change and change resistance because obviously still in that day and age, there would have been resistance to that autocratic way of doing things for those who wanted to do things differently. We head into the mid 1900s to the 2000s, and I'm sure you probably remember, maybe not, around Y2K and the big shift that we had coming into this information age, the spinning up of computers. I remember my grandparents having a Commodore 64, and I thought it was the most amazing thing ever as a child. The games that you could play, which were quite basic, but then just amazing learning when I was in primary school some basic coding things as a test around how would computing come into schools. And really, then in the workplace, having an email address assigned to our marketing team at the time. And I was thinking this internet and email thing's not going to work because we were working off fax machines and internal mail and having to go out to suppliers to sign off proofs at that time from a marketing perspective. Such a huge shift when technology really came to the fore. IT projects and programs became really critical for organizations, and the IT landscape just boomed. And to make sure that there was effective delivery of changes within that IT landscape, the waterfall method started to come into play from a project management perspective. And then from a change perspective, we started to see the formation of the Kotter model and Llewellyn's freeze, unfreeze model as well. So it really started to ramp up around a framework to which organizations could get better adoption, they could get better engagement from their staff, but it was still rudimentary because we were still navigating and trying to figure out our way in this information age. Now we come to the 2000s to present, and I can't believe it's 25 years since Y2K, but we're in just the next evolution. And when you consider the leadership theories now, the transformational leadership, servant leadership, emotional intelligence leadership, what was happening underneath each of these ages was a growing self-awareness for individuals around wanting to question more, wanting to have a sense of purpose aligned to the work that they did. Definitely globalization and the fact that our world got smaller and we get exposure to different cultures meant that people would question more. And we're seeing a divergence between what, say, traditional leaders would expect from their employees and essentially what the employees want and expect of their leaders and of organizations. So the employee and employer roads are diverging, and most organizations are struggling with how to get engagement back where people align to purpose because they're still stuck in some ways back in the Henry Ford days of I'm a leader, this is what I'm saying, and you just need to get on board. And if you don't, you can go elsewhere. So now we're talking self-awareness, now we're talking psychological safety, the alignment of purpose, and AI is pushing things even further. So in this day and age, that is why change intelligence and developing your change intelligence and your organization's change intelligence is going to be the competitive advantage, but also a better sense of self that you can bring to the work that you do. So it can be a little bit tiring in this day and age as we start to go through this next evolution, but there's ways that we can adapt even faster through this skill set that I'm about to talk about. So let's go through the change intelligence framework, and there's 6 areas. So the first is connected thinking. This is being able to assess change really effectively and fast. Joining dots if you get indicators from whether it be the external market or internally within your organization that change is going to be coming down the pipeline, and how you can manage that with your teams, how you can adapt fast across the priorities that you might have in your team, the priorities within your portfolio. That is what connected thinking is all about. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and we will have future webinars on it. Growth and grit, which is what we're going to be covering today, is about being able to reflect and grow during times of change. So, aligning purpose to everything you do with perseverance. So, always keeping in mind the vision, the forward movement, getting traction with your change, and getting forward momentum. Communication, it's such a misused word, really, because communication and the action that we take, communication is about information exchange. It is giving and receiving feedback, how you then evolve as part of that process, and about engagement and empowerment. Now, many people wouldn't realize that the way that they're communicating or the modes that they're potentially not using is why you're not getting traction with your change and why you're really struggling to get engagement. It's a different level of consideration that you need around your communication plan rather than just the tactical execution. Emotional awareness, understanding the drivers of emotional responses and responding, not reacting. And emotional awareness in a change context is very much you would expect that there would always be an emotional reaction, both positive and negative, to any change. That's a given. It doesn't matter what level of change that you're delivering, even if it's just a one-on-one communication with someone about a new piece of work that you're giving them, there's always some sort of emotive response. It's just about how you react or respond to that and how you're approaching that from an emotional awareness perspective. Connection, authentic connection is so easy to talk about, yet so hard to achieve if you're not understanding what true connection is. And I had one of these aha moments in my career because in a project or program environment, I was so delivery focused that I wasn't realizing that I wasn't connecting with my people. And I flipped the model. And through connecting with my team and making that the priority, the work got done in a faster, more collaborative way. There was far more empathy across the team. There was far more understanding and a real sense of team morale in the teams that I've led. And that is where, from a program and change perspective, we really want to get to is that it's not about the work because the work will get done. It's about the people in your team. And then also assessing and discussing with them whether their role, if you're finding that they're not performing in their role, whether it's really the role for them and supporting them in almost finding another role if that is the case, because that is how we treat people with kindness and respect, but to get a good outcome for everyone. Curiosity, so healthy inquiry underpinned with an intent to learn is the genuine curiosity factor, which is really effective. If you're using once again the word curiosity and asking questions, but with an intent to prove yourself or with an intent to prove the other person wrong, well, it's not genuinely curious, is it? And curiosity can be such a powerful tool if there's something that people are trying to talk to you about or raise with you. If you don't generally understand it, then you really need to lean on this sense of curiosity to unpack it so that you can manage risk, so that you can understand where that person is coming from, so that you can explore the data with them, and then be able to make effective decisions or raise effective issues. But today we're talking about growth and growth and grit. And I'm separating them a little bit because they have different characteristics. And growth is about the fact that every change you manage, lead, or experience is a learning opportunity. And that is so, so true. We underestimate that when we go to work, and hopefully this might raise your awareness to this, you spend most of your life in the workplace. And oftentimes the dynamics that you're experiencing and the struggle that you might be having in the workplace might be very similar to what you're experiencing outside of the workplace. And if you learn about how to approach things differently and grow as a person, not just professionally, but personally, you are going to be able to deal with change better, not just within the workplace and manage that and lead that well, but also within your life. And you start on this exploratory journey, which can be so, so valuable if you have the right approach. So we're going to talk about your learning opportunities, what's available to you in the workplace when you're going and leading and implementing change, your team's learning opportunities, and then also your organization's learning opportunities. So the three layers that may not be optimized at the moment within your program or within your change. So let's focus on you first because, it's all about you. The mindset. So your mindset, you have an opportunity through the change process and the process or through any change to see how your mindset works. Now we have almost a default switch that seems to be embedded during our formative years around looking at deficit. And so looking at what isn't there versus what is there. And so the first part of mindset is about making sure that you're starting to become aware about whether you are exploring opportunities, whether you see every issue as an opportunity to grow and to find a solution, and that's a positive challenge for you versus, oh, I'm always defaulting to the glass half empty and there's always problems, there's issues, I can't find a way forward, and whether you're reveling more in the powerlessness versus I actually can solve and work with others and I'm open to work with others to solve this. So your mindset and having a growth mindset, and I will talk a little bit about the Carol Dweck aspect of growth mindset and fixed mindset, which I do encourage you to have a look and explore. But the key concept around that growth mindset and fixed mindset, which I always like to consider, is that we could have a fixed mindset about a certain topic, a certain stakeholder, a certain change, and we might have a growth mindset about everything else. And the importance of understanding that at any point in time, you could slip into a fixed mindset and then you might then slip into a growth mindset on other things is how fascinating we are as humans, but also something for you to look at and explore. So if you find that you're quite rigid in your thinking when it comes to the way you approach change, even around the way you lead your team, it might be worth taking a step back and reflecting upon, do I have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset about this? What can I do to actually start to shift from a fixed mindset to free up my thinking that maybe there's a different way and start to step into a growth mindset if you're finding that you've got a frustration in a certain area. So your mindset will always determine your experience. Your belief systems will always determine your experience, which is why it's such a big learning opportunity when you're delivering, implementing, or leading change. Strengths. Take a strengths-based approach around learning opportunities. Always remind yourself of what you're doing well, of your skill sets. Sometimes we forget if we're in the workplace, we're getting feedback around the change, which is negative, rather than then embodying that and thinking, well, I'm wrong, like I'm not good at this, I don't know what I'm doing, is remind yourself on, okay, well, I am good at writing, I am good at, communicating. It could be I am really good at the analysis part of change. I do analyze change well, or I am a subject matter expert, like I know my stuff. Do that and then approach the problem. When you have a strengths-based approach and you keep referring to your talents and your abilities, it just helps put you in a positive space to be able to solve problems more easily. So always, always consider a learning opportunity as the good feedback, as well as those areas that you can improve. Areas of frustration. So I'm sure we all have those. Certainly in change, change is difficult. It is not an easy path to take. And if you're getting frustrated, whether it be at a certain stakeholder, you're getting frustrated at a certain communication that's not working, that's okay. That just says, how can you reflect and grow from that experience to improve it for the next time? What are you going to do differently? It lends itself a little bit to the seeking and listening to feedback, even if you're doing a great job and no one's really you, giving you any negative feedback. It is still worth having conversations, whether it be via a coffee at the water cooler, if you finished a project or program meeting and you just grab the subject matter expert that you're working with or one of your colleagues and just take them aside and ask them to say, how do you think I could improve that if you were the one facilitating the meeting? Always seeking feedback helps you grow as professionally and personally, and not necessarily always seeking feedback for those that you get along with. It's important to also seek feedback from people who you may not have established relationships because they'll have a different bias towards you. And I think that can sometimes help you grow as well. Understand what you own and what is not yours to own. And it's a fine line around when people are projecting things onto you when it comes to feedback and their own insecurities versus what you actually need to hear. And that's something you will need to self-determine around this is something that, yes, I played a role in this, and this is how this happened, and I accept accountability on that and they didn't do that well versus and explore, I think, in that for yourself around what went on for you in that. What could you do differently next time? Versus if someone else is imposing their own insecurities but not taking accountability, it's important that you're creating that boundary so that you can take the growth opportunity for yourself. Don't be attached to as to whether the other person's going to take that opportunity to grow because it has nothing to do with them. Remember, it's all about you. And so it's very much around reflecting, but don't take on too much. Your team's learning opportunities. Let's go through these. Reflection sessions. It's always good if you've got a team that you're creating the space for reflection-based conversations. Hey, team, what are we doing well? What are we enjoying? What are we not enjoying so much? What's ambiguous for us? What can we do together to improve this? Really good questions, reflection session, discussion, check-in, helps everyone connect, helps everyone understand each other's point of view. Areas of frustration again is good. We talk about what are we doing well, but where are we struggling a little bit? Why are we struggling with that? What can we do differently? Really good constructive conversation in that. And then seeking and listening to feedback. You'll find that if you create a space, which lends itself to a bit of the psychological safety aspect, absolutely, and the teaming aspect, then when stress is applied to the project or program, you already have these outlets where the team can continue the conversation and support each other. And it's a space where people can diffuse, which is great. They can decompress a little bit together in a trusted space. And you may need to set up some guidelines and rules if you're a program team around this is what the purpose of this session is about. This is what it's not about. We want to stay positive in the conversation as well. And that's not just about only bring the positive things, it's about how we can sit, acknowledge, reflect, share, and see how we can take some positive action or different action as a result of that. Now, at an organizational level, when change has been implemented and there has been change planning and there has been tactical delivery, retrospectives or post-implementation reviews. So retrospectives are quite agile oriented, PIRs are more program waterfall oriented. But it's really about, again, at the end, capturing the lessons in a tangible way. And through your change planning or your change program, you would hope that you had some measures along the way around this is what we anticipated, this is what we got, this is what worked well, this is what didn't. Talk to your sponsors and leaders across the organization about how they felt. Were they engaged enough? Did they have enough space? Create the report, document it. It's one of the best things that you can do for an organization is to create a report at the end of the program or project, and that you can have it there for perpetuity in case another change like similar to that comes up again, someone needing to lean into that, and at least it's documented and they can not have to learn the lesson twice. And I find that showcasing the report and stepping through the report, whether it be in your governance meetings, your steercos, or one-on-one with your sponsors, is really going to help them understand and grow as well, so that they can understand what they would do differently as a sponsor and where they might have not have had enough time or focus on the change at hand. Grit. When I talk about grit, I like to think about the beach sand. You know, the gritty sand that if you hold it in your hand, and I must say also too on the flip side, I don't enjoy all the sand you take home from the beach, but the grit and the sensation that you feel is all about traction. And grit and change is about momentum and traction. And every change will need an investment of focus, which is investment of time often, courage and determination. And that's at your level, that's within your team, and it's certainly within the leaders in your organization. So let's go through grit for yourself. It's about your focus on action, not drama, how you're managing your energy from day to day. Your focus on where is your time being spent? Is it spent in conversation or is it spent in momentum creation from a conversation perspective, which is have we got, where are we up to? When do we need that done by? Have we engaged with this? What do you need from me? That type of conversation versus, oh, so how's everyone going today? Okay, that's great. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, you okay with everything you're doing? Yeah, okay, that's great. And taking everything at face value. That is not focused on action. And the sometimes the water cooler conversation or sometimes the informal network can be running hot like wildfire. If you get too engaged on that or invested in that, the depletion from an energy perspective is going to be yours. So being centered, being able to be the rock amongst the choppy waters when it comes to change is really important. And you can't be what I would say an agony aunt. So you cannot save people through the change process. That will be personally exhausting and detrimental because, especially if you're doing an enterprise-wide change, you do not want to get caught in the drama. You have a job to do to support everyone, which is through good delivery, good quality delivery, good communication, two-way communication, connection from a change intelligence perspective. So you don't want to get caught in the drama. Using processes for progress is really interesting as well. It's what a tactic I always use around. It's why I like project frameworks and change frameworks. There's should be clear governance, so you should have clear escalation points. You need to size the level of issue to say which forum am I going to take it and raise it for, but I'm not going to have this issue block me. So there's not many issues which stop progress altogether. Understand when you can use parking bays, so things that aren't within the scope of the project or program that really shouldn't be on your plate. You will hear a lot as a change practitioner or someone who's managing change or leading change. You're going to hear a lot. You just need to know where to triage it to. So consider those processes around an opportunity to triage issues to the right people for them to resolve, not for you to have to fix for everyone. Understanding negotiables and non-negotiables, and this is a real key one because it does become quite a frustration for change practitioners or anyone leading change. Change is not going to be perfect in any way, shape, or form because it has people involved. So when humans are there, like the unpredictability of human behavior is just a reality. And once again, it's one of those, this is given. Now, if people don't have the appetite to do big bells and whistles for a major transformational change, then you have to accept that from the decision makers who are in that seat. So understand and navigate the negotiables and non-negotiables and don't try and win every battle. If you do that, you're going to be focused on wasting a lot of energy on small things that actually aren't going to matter in the scheme of things, and certainly never undermine the hierarchy in an organization because it's simply not worth it. Empowering people, you want to empower your leaders as well. So have respect for the structures in place and work within them. So let's also go through from a team's perspective. It's so important to have a clear vision as a team. Fundamental, in fact. Teaming gets created when everyone's working together for a common goal and a common vision. And even that's a principle or an intent of really good quality delivery. It cannot be implied, it has to be explicit that the team comes together and they all share the vision. It actually helps from a shared understanding perspective. Once again, the ability to stay focused and committed, which is that sense of grit, it helps momentum, it helps moving forward. Processes for progress is a key one in a team environment, and that has to do with scope. If you have a team member who's starting to get more scope within the project or program, so the change, even if this was the team was a leadership team looking to move an organization forward, if they start to go outside the scope of that and want to do more and more, and then say, oh, yeah, I want to innovate here, I want to innovate there, it's actually, we can't do that at this point in time. This is about getting our fundamentals in place. And that is the one vision. If everyone stays focused on that, you will find that you will cut through so much faster and be able to achieve so much more. So the processes around scope management, risk management, all of those things are really relevant, even if it's an organization that we're talking about and the team is a leadership team. Supporting each other is a byproduct of understanding, having that shared vision, and having a level of vulnerability where people will ask for help. Not everyone is going to be bringing their A game every day. It's an impossibility. We're human and life happens. And the best teams are ones who will cover each other. The best example of that asking for help is when there's psychological safety that people feel that they can ask for help, or that a leader within that team environment asks for help and role models that behavior. Leveraging experience within the team is so critical, and I don't think many teams actually do this because everyone comes to work, everyone does their role, and no one flexes outside of that, and they don't know people's backgrounds if they've been brought together on a project or program. And even if you're a change practitioner who's come into the organization and you're working with the comms person, the training person, you never really have enough time to know the depth of experience that people have. But if you create this space and through the supporting of each other, you might actually find that people have really good talents that you never knew that they had. And then when pieces of work come up that people might be struggling with because that may not be their strength, someone else might happily put up their hand and say, I can do that for you in half the time, just hand it over and then I'll send it back to you. Not a problem. That is the optimal discussion that you want to have in a team environment where people aren't so rigid, which is a sign of inflexibility or fear. Then that's what you really want to create in this team space when it comes to grit. When you need to dig in and you also need to deliver a little bit more than maybe you're expecting at the last minute, that is when you can leverage the experience broadly across the team if you've been able to create that optimal team environment. And that's where everyone digs in. Then, from a leadership perspective, change is difficult and challenging and takes courage from a leader's perspective. Leaders have to show up and ambassador change that they may not have actually created. They sometimes have to just, I wouldn't say toe the line, but definitely take on the organization view, whether they agree with it or not, and be able to lead that with their team and not have the breach of trust be created as part of that. And be comfortable sometimes with leadership to be the baddie if you're having to talk about roles or talk about anything that threatens a person's livelihood. Leaders never enjoy it. Well, if leaders do enjoy it, then that to me would be a narcissistic behavior. But certainly leaders, when it threatens people's livelihood and they know their people, it's not an enjoyable place, but that is leadership. Sometimes it's not, you're always going to be everyone's favorite person. You need to, as a leader, when it comes to grit, have a clear vision. You need to sign up and commit to that vision. It takes courage to implement. It even takes courage to approve a go live. Even when you're sending out a communication, sometimes it takes courage to send out a communication because you know that it may not be well received. And for leaders, they also should use processes for progress. So ask for a risk assessment before a go live. Ask for the briefing pack well before go live so you can get familiar with it. Ask for leaders to come together to be able to talk through the information versus just go ahead and cascade. That is what a good change leader who has focus, courage, and determination to move something through, they need to not just role model it, but wholeheartedly sign up to it. Also, from a change intelligence perspective for leaders, when it comes to grit and determination, connected thinking is quite heightened for leaders who do this well because they're always navigating environments which change through the time that they're delivering change. Nothing ever stays the same. It's not like you ever get clear space to deliver a change within an organization. So the best leaders are those who anticipate and can navigate and keep momentum happening through an ecosystem which is always changing. But without doubt, leaders have a sense and require courage to deliver change. And if you're a change practitioner working with a leader or you've rolled out change before, even from a project perspective, your mode around the processes for progress should be that you're trying to get them to a space of comfort so that they're okay to communicate, they're okay to go live, they understand and have resolved issues beforehand. So a lot of it has to do with the interconnectivity between your role, the leader, the sponsor, and the leadership team more broadly, and then the leaders at the levels that they have. It can be quite challenging for transformation programs, but it can be very, very effective. So growth and grit. One of the key things I wanted to talk about as well with kind of the courage aspect and focus aspect and time is talking about a typical go live, the fact that you absolutely, the level of commitment and focus closer to a go live, it increases dramatically for the leader, for the project team, and for you as an individual. And you need to anticipate that and work with that to get the best outcome. Then post go live, it doesn't end. And I think there can be almost this psychology that once we get to go live, like that's the go for. And from a project perspective, that may be the case of like it's all about getting it live in the system, live in the organization. But you will find that you don't drop off a cliff. In fact, the commitment required after go live can either continue to go up because if there's issues, they might need to be resolved. And you're going to know a little bit or sense a little bit of this before you'll go live based on your risk profile. So, how well people are engaged, have people really been paying attention to this? As, from a change perspective, you're absolutely going to get a sense of whether everyone's informed enough, confident enough, got enough ownership, because you'll know the amount of time people and attention that people have placed on the piece of change itself. So it's either going to go up, and so if there's after go live, there may need to be an increase of commitment from leaders for reinforcement if there's issues, or if everyone has been well engaged, then it can decrease over time. And the main focus post go live from a commitment perspective and a focus perspective is reinforcement, making sure that people are still getting into that new way of working, that they're adopting the change, and that they're achieving the outcomes. And so that embedment is important, and you do need focus as part of that, and a bit of grit, especially if there are issues. Committing, recommitting, flexing a little bit. If there is a core issue, then potentially having to roll back, which I've seen in some projects and programs when potentially the risk hasn't been managed well, and their level of commitment, though, has had to increase. So, the things that you can do from the back of this for growth, schedule in learning sessions now with your teams. Absolutely. Create the space for people to reflect and for yourself. So make sure that you're taking some time at the end of every week. It's a good Friday afternoon exercise. How did this week go? What could I do better next week? What did I do really well this week? How am I going to improve next week? Those type of conversations or those type of activities. For grit, observe where you focus and when you're challenged, how you respond. Whether you find that you get knocked off center pretty easily if there's resistance, for example, and what can you do around focusing your energy, building up that determination, and where are you finding that you may be faltering when it comes to courage to have the right conversations and picking out your negotiables and non-negotiables as part of that. Just two things, very simple, hopefully that you can implement in basically after you've listened to this. What next? So, next month, we're talking about communication. And also, we have our 5 question change plan course, which is going to be opening soon. So, I will send you information about that. Thanks for joining today. I hope you got some benefit from that you're seeing things through a different lens. And just remember that when you're approaching change and projects, whether you're leading, implementing, influencing for change, have a growth mindset about it, have an open mindset about it. And every day, think about the level of commitment, where you're up to in delivering that change and what's required. And also acknowledge others if they're really showing up and displaying that level of commitment that you need for the change to be a success. It's always good to be positive. Have a great day and thanks for joining.